a text mining tool and content analysis tool that use dictionaries to categorize words or do machine learning and do automatic document classification, while QDA Miner is more a manual coding tool with some computer assistance. Okay, and this is an example. What you see in front of you is QDA Miner, and I did some coding on this project, and I will use this project and maybe another one to show you the different way one could interact between QDA Miner and WordStat. But initially, WordStat was created as an add-on to a statistical software, SimStat, and so that if it was built on top of that, and it's only about 7 years later that I came up developing QDA Miner, and one of the reasons is that I wanted to be able to control what WordStat will do. So let me do a pretty quick overview of, well, QDA Miner. Well, here I can show you that QDA Miner, the way it works is that you have a code book, you could select some text and assign some codes to that, okay? So, and let me remove this coding. But when I call WordStat, and I'll show you pretty quickly, okay, typically what it will do is that it will analyze the full documents. And if I go there, and if I want to compare, here I have 243 speeches, and I want maybe to see how the different candidates differ. This is from the 2008 presidential race. So I will do a pretty quick some frequency. Let me go back. Let me reduce that to 300 words simply for efficiency purpose. And I could do some comparison and some analysis. I could apply some dictionaries, and I could do things like correspondence analysis that will show me how the different candidates differ. So Clinton used those topics, Obama talk about those issues, Republicans are usually here mainly, and they talk about those issues, and we have other topics like that. So here the software really allow me to extract information. Here it's a pure manual coding, sorry, if it's an exploratory text mining approach using words only, and I could do some analysis on that, like the topic modeling that has been introduced in version 7, and that allow you to see what they are talking about. But let me go back into QDA Miner, because now I want to show you that I could, one of the reasons why the QDA Miner and WordStat integration was created is that I may wanted to actually control what will be analyzed in WordStat. I may not want to analyze the full documents. I may only want to analyze specific sections of my document. And for example, here when I did my analysis on those speeches, I could see what are the different topics discussed by different people. But what if I want to simply look at what are the topics, what they say when they talk about the same topic? What I did is I coded the topic, so I could tell the software, using QDA Miner, I could control what will be analyzed, and I could say, let's look at every time they talk about healthcare. And if I do that, now the software will only analyze those sections, and I'll be able to go there and do the same kind of analysis. Okay, find 300 most frequent words. Actually, I didn't met the frequency criteria. Let me slightly reduce that. Okay, so now I should have now 300 words, and now I can do a crosstab, but this time I'm comparing what they say when they are talking about the same issue. So it allows me to focus on something more specific. Let me show you another example. Because, for example, if you are analyzing transcripts, let me go back. I will open the 2016 primaries. Let me save this. Okay, so now I have the 2016 primaries, and what we did is that we have several debates, and we actually coded every candidate using some section retrieval tools in QDA Miner. So now I could actually tell the software that I only want to analyze one candidate, or I could tell the software if I tag every time a moderator is talking, I could actually analyze the full documents, but tell the software don't include every time a moderator is talking. so that the software will look at all the rest. Imagine that you are doing that on some reports or some journal articles. You could actually select the reference section and say, don't analyze the reference section, or only analyze the reference section. Or maybe if you're looking for a research methodology, you could say, oh, okay, I tagged those sections where they talk about the research method they have used, only analyze that, and this will focus on those parts. So, and I do that by saying either that I should include it or not included some items. In my case here, I could actually tell the software that I want to analyze those 4, and it will only analyze different speeches for speech turns by those actually last 5 candidates. So Sanders, Clinton, Kasich, Trump, and Cruz. But here I could actually say that I want actually to compare the coding that I've done here. So if I do that, I could tell the software to actually create a temporary data set that will have all speech turns from all those 5 candidates. So it will extract all those parts, and I'll be able to do that. And I could even add some variables. So I could let's have the party, the broadcast, the network. So when it was when the debates occur, and if I click OK, now the software will create a temporary project and will allow me. Okay, sorry, I will bring it here. Okay, and it will allow me to now do some frequency analysis on all those speeches and come up with some comparison across my candidates. So I'm actually looking at which words are associated with which coding, and in this case the coding represent different candidates, so I can basically tell which word they use and how and how different they are. Okay, so the main idea here is to control what text sections will be analyzed using a qualitative coding tool, QDA Miner, to tell WordStat what to analyze, but also what to compare, okay, and maybe what to exclude also. So that's one way to do it. Now let me go back, and I'll go back to the selection data sets, so different topics here. Now I'll show you a few other ways that QDA Miner and WordStat could be integrated. If I go into WordStat, WordStat will allow me to explore things. So I will analyze the full text. I will simply I may look at some connections between candidates and etc. So now if I will go into WordStat, and we built into WordStat the ability to apply some coding to QDA Miner. So I could speed up the coding quite a lot, or of course I could use WordStat to explore and try to get an idea of what a series of text, what they're talking about, and I could do that by using different things. I could use a simple word frequency. I could also use co-occurrence, where I could see how topics are being discussed, and I could see how those topics are created, for example, cutting tax for the middle class. And I could simply go back in QDA Miner and do some coding. But what I could do also is I could use the keyword retrieval in WordStat to actually apply codings in my QDA Miner project, apply qualitative coding, the code marks that you see in the document margin, okay? And I'll do that. I can do it from here. Let me take something, for example, something about education, okay? So this one is a cluster of words that talks about education, and I can actually right-click and say, let's retrieve those. So I right-click, select keyword retrieval, and now it brings me some example. And if you have used QDA Miner, you will be familiar with this tool, which is the auto-coding tool. And I can actually now go down, and here they are sorted by the number of words they contain. So I may focus on those that contain only a few words. And here I have 2 words only, but at some point I will have only 1. No, it's all 2 words. Okay, so that's okay. And we look at that. I can remove some of those, and if some of those are not relevant, I can simply click on that. But what is important is I can now add some codes, and I have a code here, education. I can select it, and I can click on this button that will go and create 338 hits. So it will go to all my documents, my 243 documents, and it will automatically attach to all those items a code education. It may already been there, if it doesn't matter, but here the software did that. But if I want it, if I find something that I have not been found elsewhere, if I could also do that. So here I have something about, well, climate change, clean energy, and if I want to code something about that, and I could do again a retrieval and create a new code. I may have it, but I will create a new code, clean and energy. I think it does exist, so I will say 2 under other. So I can select my categories. I could select my color just like I would do in QDA Miner. And if well, let's make it green since it's a clean energy, and click OK. And now I can tag all those. It's actually 345 paragraphs, and it will go and will code a paragraph. I could have done that on sentence also. Okay. And if I go back in QDA Miner, let me go back. Okay. I have now the clean energy, and if I do a keyword retrieval from here, I should be able to retrieve all those paragraphs and create some text reports. Okay, so here I'm using WordStat to apply some coding. Now let's look at a few other places where I could apply such kind of auto coding. Okay, if I do from the frequency analysis, okay, simple frequency analysis on words, I could do that on words. I can select the word, right-click, keyword retrieval, or I click on that and it will bring me a dialog. But if I do it, it will right away do the search and bring me the results. And then again, I could select my dialog. I could do that also from the phrase extraction. If I think that a phrase is a really good characteristics, for example, war in Iraq, right-click, again, keyword retrieval, and I can tag that. Okay, it will take some time and it will bring me, I think I may not have done it, okay, and it should bring me the results and I'll be able to code that. I could also do that from the topic modeling. So so the topic modeling will give me some topics. Then again, I could right-click and ask for everything that is associated with that and keyword retrieval and then code that. But also what is important also is that I could also apply for dictionary. And okay, so let me select for dictionary. I will select, I think I have the Lever and Gary here, which is a dictionary that looks for different items related to politics. So I can apply that, say I will tag that up to the second level, click search, and now I have some categories. Again, I could right click and ask for every keyword retrieval. But there's, let me actually go back. I will go, yeah, to the second level. That's good. Okay, so I could also, there's a quick way to create from a dictionary some codes. And the way to do that is to click on that, and this will actually allow me to apply, like if I leave the button on it, you will see it, apply QDA Miner codes of text segments for all my categories that I have here. So I can build a dictionary that will allow me to measure those topics. Then I could tell the software, okay, apply to paragraph all the codings that are appropriate across for all those 11 categories I have here. And what it will do is that it will actually create 11 new codes. And now I will have, so it did apply 9,750 codes assigned to 6,080 paragraphs, okay? And if I go back in QDA Miner, let me go back in QDA Miner, what I have is I actually have a category that is actually the name of my dictionary. I have all the codes that were there from the subcategories and subcodes, and now I have actually a lot of coding that have been applied, and now I can do some frequency analysis and see that we do have some codings associated with those. So that's, I would say it's the well, the nuclear options of coding, doing qualitative coding by applying a dictionary that may have hundreds of categories, and then I can apply that. But what is the benefit here also is that QDA Miner allow me to review those and change those automatically. So if I go there and if I find that some of the words that are there are not appropriate, I can remove the coding, or I can recode that to something else. I could do that also from, for example, let me find something about, urban. Now I could do a retrieve segments, and it's here. And from here, actually, I could look at the full text and decided that some of those may not be appropriate. This talks about cities, but I can decide to remove it, and if I click on that, it will remove the urban coding from this part. So I'm using QDA Miner to get a more precise assessments of my topics by looking at items that have been coded in a specific way and cleaning the results, removing the false positive. So it allowed me to really come at something more precise. So this is another way to integrate QDA Miner and WordStat by creating those categories. Now let me actually delete that. Okay, so I will delete all those codes, and now I will show you something else. Another way to integrate that, and I will do two kind of analysis here. I will use this dictionary, but rather than coding that, I will save my settings. So here I have a dictionary that measured those different items. I will go up to the second level, and I will set some options here. And if I go and I apply some frequency, what I can do is I can actually save to disk my categorization model. My categorization model is actually my dictionary, and any if I have a dictionary that categorizes that, I also have an exclusion list. I may have some pre-processing like stemming or lemmatization being done there. And if I export my categorization model, by default it will allow me to do it here. Okay, I will call it Claver and Gary. That's the name of the dictionary. I will save that, and what it did save is everything I need to replicate those results by doing a keyword search in QDA Miner. But before going there, what I will do also is I will try to do some machine learning. I will try to predict the candidates. Typically, when I do that, I don't use any dictionary, and I may use more words. Let me reduce here some frequency. So I will do a quick machine learning, okay, on those words, no lemmatization, not except exclusion lists, and now I will try to classify, and I will do a simple test. I know that I could get up to 95%, but I will do a simple test where I will try to learn using a naive-based machine learning, and I will use uniform prior. So here, what I ask is the software to categorize that. I have a 84% accuracy. That's okay. I know that I could do better, but I will stay there because I should not. I should do a demo on machine learning, but that's not for today. So I will save that also, and I will say that, well, I already have one, but I will overwrite it. Okay. So I save the machine learning models that allow me to predict which candidate it is. I save it. And I save it, and if you look carefully, I save it into a model folder. You could save it elsewhere, but if you save it into the model folder, they will already be available in QDA Miner. Okay, so let me go back. I will quit. And now I'm in QDA Miner. Now, we did save a categorization model that with dictionaries, exclusion lists, and a dictionary. And I also save a classification model that classify automatically based on words among candidates. What I will do is I will try to use the keyword retrieval to find some topics. And the keyword retrieval allow me to select the dictionary that I just created, and I could say I'm looking for sentences that are associated with, say, rural, okay? or let's take urban like we did before, because I know that there are more words there. And now what I'm doing here is I'm using a WordStat dictionary that I've saved into a external file. I'm using a WordStat dictionary in order to do a search, but the search is based on several words. Here we have maybe 5 words patterns. I think cities, towns, etc., urban also. But sometimes I may have hundreds of words and word patterns and phrases. And I could have some disambiguation rules also. So I have the full power of the WordStat dictionaries or taxonomies, and I can use that in order to do some searches. Now the software will apply the full dictionary and try to bring everything that match the urban category, and I should get some hits. So I'm searching again across my 243 speeches. It found 283 items, and if I want to create a variable cities under other, okay, again it will create the dictionary, but then I could auto code all of those. So now I have coded 283 sentences with the code cities, and you see it's here actually. This is synchronized, so I can move from one to the other, and I can see that it has been applied. Okay, so this is again, I'm using a dictionary that was created in WordStat in order to code, auto codes elements or do some searches in elements. In QDA Miner, I always have the ability to review before applying a auto coding. So I could look at those 283, try to identify those that are not relevant and remove those before. This is what makes QDA Miner different from WordStat, okay? But we haven't looked now at the machine learning part. The machine learning actually is available from many features. So let me retrieve, I could retrieve from here, I could retrieve all units, and I could retrieve all documents. And what it will do, if it will only show me a list of all the documents I have, okay? Of course, doing a machine learning on applying a machine learning models on the training sets, which is this data sets, is not really meaningful. But I'm doing this on purpose. But I could use something else to try to another data sets of other speeches by other politicians to try to categorize those, or I could try to predict whether they are Democrats or Republicans. Now, if I click here on this button, it actually show me a panel that allow me to call my classification model, and I have my 10 candidates here. And if I tell the software that I want to classify, what it will do is that it will look at all the documents, will try to apply the machine learning, and it will try to categorize it as either Biden, Obama, so categorize into those 10 candidates. My machine learning model was accurate at about 83%, 53, 84%, yet it may give pretty good results here, but I will say that I only want to see items for which I have a confidence of a ratio of 2, and so I may explain that to you a little bit later. So actually the software, the ratio is quite high. It's very confident that this is Biden, of course, but of course that's a very easy test to do, okay? And Obama, and sometime it will actually make some, it may make some mistakes, so I can look at those and I can see what they are. And but of course, again, that's a inaccurate way of assessing a model, because I'm cheating here. I'm using the same data sets to test, to do the final machine learning than the training sets. But I could try to do something a little bit more difficult, is to do that by paragraph and try to see whether that's a type of paragraph that come from one candidate or the other. And it should be quite much more difficult, and I could then classify that, and what it will do is that it will try to classify every single paragraph here and tell who mentioned that. I could machine learning. I could try to. Well, machine learning is typically used for things like classifying spams from legitimate emails, but it could also allow you to classify language. For example, try to decide which language it is, and typically here it's almost all English, so we may be able to predict that quite accurately, and the longer the paragraph, the easier it will be. But I could also do some machine learning to try to do some coding. So from here, I think that we have a 5 domains. Okay, that's a machine learning that we did, where we actually fed abstracts from journals in 5 domains. And if I do that, and if I do a classification here, it will try to guess which domain it is. And of course, it may not be any domain, but by telling the software, and if I could come up with a good prediction based on some coding I did and do some machine learning to try to predict those codes, I may even automate some of the coding and with some confidence. So okay, so some of those here sentence, and I could see the full paragraph. Of course, the word money was highly associated with economy, and there are some bonds also of economy, and so the software tried to find those that could be predicted easily. And I have, in terms of category, a few other classes. Let me see. Okay, politics, sociology, education, for example. So here we did some machine learning, and I could actually code all it, and it will actually create 5 domains, and it will apply the coding to all those items. So when you do that, you have to be careful to validate and make sure that you have a good prediction when you develop your machine learning in WordStat. But if you have something that could be predicted quite accurately, if it could be a binomial prediction, this or not, or it could be differentiating, like here, 5 different domains or 10 different domains. But if you could get good accuracy by developing a machine learning for that, now you could apply it to speed up a lot the coding process. Now I will let the software finish, and you should be able to see that the software will have some coding. Of course, I could then go back in QDA Miner. Well, we are still in QDA Miner, but I can go back to the results and decide which one I should remove from that. Okay, so QDA Miner allow me this kind of manual coding. I remember talking to some companies who were looking at our text mining tool, and they didn't saw the value of a tool like QDA Miner because they thought that, well, in a company, if they want to do typically what they want to do is analyze a large amount of text, and they want to build dictionaries, and they want to actually also do machine learning and automatic document classification. But and they didn't saw the value of QDA Miner because they say it's a manual process. But if you really think about that, if you start exploring a new domain, the best way probably to do a machine learning, let's assume that you want to do tag to do machine learning, to do sentiment analysis, for example, on tweets, and you want to categorize those tweets as positive and negative, but you are in a specific domain and you're looking for some of those comments that can be quite short, and you need a training set to do this machine learning classification into sentiment. And you could typically the way it is done is that you will have a comment and you will have a score, whether if it's positive, negative, or neutral. But what QDA Miner allows you to do is, if you have a single comment, let's assume that this is the tweet, which is a long tweet, but you could say, okay, this is the positive part. I think it's positive because of that, so you could categorize that as positive. Then you could say, and this is the negative part, and this is also the negative part. So now you tell the software, rather than giving the overall comments a single score, whether it's positive or negative, you could actually tell the software exactly what brings you to think that that this is positive or negative, and you could actually come up with some nuance by saying that, okay, this part is positive, this part is negative, this part is positive, this part is negative, this part is neutral. And by doing that, now you could come up with a much better training set to detect sentiment. So that's one cases where the manual part, the manual coding is quite crucial for that. For another way, I would say for another application, and I would like to finish on that, okay, you do some machine learning, and one example that comes to mind is that we have a team who have done some manual coding of project to try to identify some communication skills among people collaborating by emails. Okay, so it was people from civil societies, they were collaborating, and they spend a lot of time trying to code 5 months of emails. I think it took them 6 months to code those 5 months of emails, but when they finished, they had 4 more years. So it was impossible to try to go to that because it would take them, with the same number of people, probably 4 or 5 years to code those additional years. So what they did is that they used the manual coding they did and tried to see whether they could develop good predictive model to identify those. So, but even if the machine learning is not totally accurate, what it could do is that it could identify potential cases, and it will be confident in some cases, and it could bring you, say for example, that you have a if you try to predict something, a call for consensus, okay, and that's the kind of strategies that people could do and try to encourage people to come up with this consensus. So he did that on 5 months. He coded those, and if the software brings say 200 more paragraphs, and the accuracy of those paragraphs is only 50%, well, it would only have to look to 200 paragraphs and clean that up, and he would be able to identify those that are true positive and true negative, even manually, because you know that the accuracy is not perfect. But rather than going through maybe tons of, well, 200,000 paragraphs, he could actually look at those 200 paragraphs and identified among those that are real cases of call for consensus and code them manually, so that here he actually reduces work, even if it was not 100% accurate, if it was only 50% accurate for true positive, but then he reduced his work a lot, and he would be able to code maybe 100, identify 100 cases where this occurred. But of course, if he find that his machine learning is accurate at 95%, he could also, well, fully automated, simply apply the machine learning, apply the coding, and don't bother too much about the false positives that are there, because he did that. So there are many ways one could combine a manual coding and some automatic coding in WordStat. WordStat could help you find what's in there. You could actually do some tagging or coding in QDA Miner, but you could also use QDA Miner as a starting point to do some machine learning, or to build some dictionaries into WordStat, so that you could go from a manual coding process to a automation using either dictionaries, taxonomies, or machine learning. So those are examples of ways we have used QDA Miner and WordStat together to come up with some more accurate results or faster coding of unstructured text data. Okay, so on that, I think that we should probably go to Tony for questions that people may have.
Okay, thank you, Normand. If you have a question, go to the right-hand portion of your screen into the chat feature and type in your question, and we'll take your questions. It looks like that was a pretty comprehensive explanation of how to work with QDA Miner and words. Oh, we have one question. We have a question. What's the best way to create your own dictionary?
Okay. Well, we did our last webinar was on this topic. So the first thing I would say is, okay, you should look at our last recording of webinar, because it was on how to build a dictionary. But I could answer the question in a slightly different way. What is the best way to actually categorize, create a dictionary if I have already done some coding? Okay, so again, I'm talking about the integration of QDA Miner and WordStat. So let's assume, and let me actually remove the clean energy, this one, or let me simply go there. What I would do is I would, let's assuming that I've done some categories and I want to differentiate some of those, and I'm not sure we've done things totally accurately here. So let me select some of those topics. Let's assume that I want to create categories about that. And let's put religion and global warming and clean energy, for example. Okay, I won't take the other ones. Okay, so here what I do is I'm trying to see how I could use my manual coding to help me build a dictionary. Okay, and actually I think I did the wrong thing. Let me go back. Okay, and I should also explain to you what I'm planning to do. What I will do is I will select my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories. I have 5 categories here. I did remove some of those. Let me go back there. Okay. Okay, so I will select some categories, and I have to make sure that I have enough examples, and I will look at the software to look at which words are associated with those 5 or 6 or 10 categories, and I will tell the software that I will compare across those categories. Okay, I could even include all the things that have not been coded as a reference point if I want, but I won't do it here. Click OK. Of course, we do have some overlap, so there will be some words that will be associated with 2 or 3 topics. Now it brings me WordStat. Okay, and now I wanted to create some categories, and I could try to type some of those here, and I know, and let me create a test. Again, I will replace it, and I will add some categories. I know that I have something about education, something about healthcare, probably. And let's start with that, because we could add more later. So one thing I could do right away is go into the WordStat part. From here, I could actually do a chi-square that will tell me, by looking at the I chi-square, and I will see words that are actually associated with some of those topics. Okay, and I could do the same thing for phrases also. I could extract phrases, and I could find some of those. But from here, I could right away, I did add something about the Iraq War, so I could actually drop that into a new category, and it will be, say, Iraq. Let's simply put Iraq into a new category. Okay, and of course here I'm seeing words that are associated with some of those, and I could also have done things from here, and you see that I have some words here. Okay, and I can actually see some of those words. I cannot add those words to my dictionary from here, but I can identify those quite easily, and then add those to my to my different categories here. And if I go there, and if I extract phrases, I could do the same. I could find phrases, and typically I do suggest starting with phrases. This is something that I've mentioned the last time. For example, healthcare, of course it will go there. War in Iraq. Let's put, I don't know whether we had any distinction between war in Iraq and Afghanistan, but let's say Iraq and Afghanistan. That will be my category. If I could later rename that. Nuclear weapons, let's create that into, say, national security, national. So of course it's not, it may not be related to that. Global economy, if I could create something about globalization. Okay, but I could also tell the software that I wanted to look at, and let's do a chi-square on that. Okay, so here I will do a crosstab of those phrases with all my codes, and it will then compute a chi-square. I don't know how many cases. Oh, I have too many variables, and I don't see any stop button here. So yeah, but what the software will do, and let me bring here, is that it will show me some of the phrases. Okay, I'm glad that it did a error there, but what I'll be able to do is then sort on that, and let me go back, chi-square, and I could see some of those words that are associated with some topics, and those words are very specific to my topics. Other phrases may not be specific, so I can take Wall Street and create a new category, for example, economy, click add, free trade. Well, free trade, let's put that under globalization. Of course, globalization could be a subcategories of economy. Tax cuts could also be something related to taxes or to something else. I think we do have a category, but I can take this one, tax breaks, tax credits, and right click, add it to a new category, and it will be taxes. Okay, under root or under economy. Yeah, let's put that under economy. And now I have some words there. Okay, so again, this is a good way to start, because the software could help you identify which items are highly associated with some of those with the coding that you have fed WordStat with. And by doing that, you'll be able then to apply the dictionary. So this is, of course, it's not necessarily the best way to build a dictionary in general, but if you have done some coding and if you wanted to use the manual coding to help you, that would be one way to do it.
Okay, thank you. And Jennifer, if you go on the website, you can hear the previous webinar we did on how to build dictionaries, which will give you more details. So I have two other questions. One is a more general question, and it's, what's a ballpark number in terms of how much information or data you have when you should use WordStat or when you should use QDA Miner? That's one question. Okay. And the second question is, what is the best way to analyze over 100,000 social media posts with QDA Miner?
Okay. Okay. Well, if I also saw something about the chi-square, higher chi-square.
Yes, there's also that question too.
Okay. Yeah. So when to use QDA Miner, when to use WordStat? That's a tricky question. Quite often, even if you have a small amount, well, if you have a small amount, there are some features that may not work as well in the WordStat. WordStat uses statistical pattern to find topics. And for example, if I have, say, 100 tweets, my guess is that WordStat will not be useful, but you could code them easily into QDA Miner. If it can be coded manually, of course, QDA Miner is there. But even if you have 1,000 tweets, or say you have 500 open-ended responses, you could still use WordStat. Not that the topic modeling, which is this tool that here that could automatically extract topics, it may work, but it will not necessarily be accurate, but it will still give you some insights about what's in your text. So here I've done that. I don't know how many words I had there, but well, again, here if it's computing again, but it may not be accurate here, and something that is good enough to somehow automate that, but it will still give you some information that you could then go back and maybe create a code book and manually code that. And it also depends also from the type of question you ask. We had some question when the question is very specific. WordStat could actually analyze text very quickly, and even if it's a few words, because software could actually group words and misspellings of words. For example, we had someone who sent information about brands, for example. Which brand comes to mind when you think about, say, cereal? Okay, then people could name some brands. And if you analyze in that, even with a few hundred responses, you could get a really quick idea, and you could actually bring together pretty quickly a dictionary that will allow you to code those 300 or 400 responses. But when it's general questions, maybe if it will go off in many directions, and it will allow you to explore, but not that much. So you better go back into QDA Miner and use some of the features in QDA Miner for open-ended. And maybe we'll do a demo on that also later. So that's for the number of questions. The chi-square is quite tricky. Okay, the chi-square actually, okay, well, of course, the higher the chi-square, the more specific it is to some coding or to some classes. Or, for example, I had candidate before. Here,
Yes. I could just, because not everybody knows the exact question. The question is, what would a higher chi-square mean in the context of the dictionary?
Okay. Okay, if in the context of dictionary, if in the context of the dictionary building company task is that the higher chi-square would be words that differentiate the different categories that you feed the software. So those words are likely to be more associated with some of those categories. While if I look at the low chi-square, okay, for example, mean, standing, state, meet, serve, the low chi-square would actually be words that are not necessarily associated with any one of those words that appear at the top. So in the context of building a dictionary, that's the words with the highest chi-square will be those that will have discriminative value, allowing you to find relationship with that. For example, taxes, of course, it is related to tax. And here, if I simply do let me do a case occurrence and a category percent, which will tell me how many of the items in taxes. And if I again sort on the chi-square, taxes is it there? Taxes is here. Okay, so 27% of all my items that I've tagged as taxes in QDA Miner contain the word taxes, and 91% actually contain tax like that. So I can already say that by simply putting those two words, I could actually code quite a lot of those. And by the way, I could sort on that and see which words are highly associated. Okay, so somehow American is highly associated, but the chi-square is lower because it's actually appear also at high frequency elsewhere. So that's the reason why I think chi-square is more interesting. Okay, now what is the best way to analyze over 100,000 social media posts in QDA Miner? I would not tend to analyze social media, that amount of social media in QDA Miner. I would tend to go right away into WordStat. QDA Miner has some tools, and there are some tools that could help you code more quickly. But when you talk about 100,000 social media posts, it would be tricky. You could start to do some manual coding, and maybe again that could be a topic of another presentation, but I could do, for example, some coding on some first items. So say I do some coding on the first 100, then I could ask the software, for example, to look at everything that I've done with housing crisis and let me do it. I'll do a query by example, and I could select what I've coded as housing crisis, and then I could tell the software, let's retrieve everything I've coded this way, click a search, and it will bring me among all of those items that have not been coded, and I don't believe I have a lot, everything that looks like what could be coded as housing crisis. Okay, but of course I've done quite a lot of coding here. If you don't have any relevant example, it may be because you have done a good job. But if you have coded only say 100 out of 100,000, then the software will search in all the other ones things that that looks like what you have coded in the first 100. So that would be my way to do it in QDA Miner to be more efficient. However, 100,000, I would definitely go to WordStat. That's the kind of number that WordStat can really do something in terms of efficiency and code more quickly.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Our time's just about up. If you have any other questions, please send them to us through the website at Contact Us, and we'll get back to you individually. Thanks for attending the webinar. We're trying to have at least once a month webinars like this on different subjects. If there's a subject you would like us to cover, please send us through the Contact Us link on our website, and of course follow us on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. And we'll announce the dates and times and the subjects for the next webinar shortly. So thank you very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.